I figured I'd shoot a video showing how you adjust your valves. If you hear a ticking sound when your engine's running, that means the rocker arm assembly. Ooh, that's pretty loose. Oh, I might. I don't know. I'll check that here in a second. Anyhow, I'm supposed to take this cover off, and I might try to do it with it on. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, there's my valve cover. It was just on top of here. I just took the 4 bolts off that hold it on. Don't forget your ground cable. Mine are headed on this bolt here. Gotta rehook that up when you get done with it. I just got one of these little magnetic trays. They're like $5 down at O'Reilly's, and it's good to put your bolts and stuff in. One thing, I'll show you while I'm here. These are your spark plug seals. They seal up here, help keep stuff out of your spark plug well. And I still got all the. I just took the wires out and draped them over the back, and just flopped this over here. And here's my gasket. I'll take it out and probably put it back on here. The reason why it stayed in there, in fact, you can probably see it right there. I got a little Honda bond. When you put these gaskets in, you want to put a little Honda bond in the corners, just a little bit, just enough to hold it in there and help seal it, because they have a tendency to leak at those corners. That's why you should put that on there. And you just get that through your dealer. I don't know, it's like $12 a tube or something, lasts for a long time. And so I took my wheel off. You want to do that so you can have access to the pulley down there. You just put a socket on here and turn it, and you're like, well, which way should I turn it? Just think you're going to mess it up and turn it to the left. And it might come loose, I doubt it, but if it does, you got to torque it back on to like 134, which is almost impossible to do on this. This is a 95 Civic. Everybody just takes an impact wrench and just hits it, and then just calls it done. And I'm usually a big pro torque everything down guy, but there's no easy way to hold your engine while you try to torque that. It wants to turn everything around. And on the newer ones, they got like a square nut thing cut out, and you can actually put a big old nut device in there or get a special tool to hold that. So again, if this comes loose, just hit it with an impact. Hopefully you got an impact. You can get an electric one. If you don't have a compressor, they're pretty cheap. So the way I'm going to try to do this is, you can see the lobes right here, and I got to kind of investigate. I'm pretty sure I can get away with this. I do this on the Accords. You know, if you look in the manual, it's got an up timing mark, and they tell you to take off this cover and look at the up, and then do the number 1 cylinder, and then turn it a quarter turn, which is the crank shaft turns around, or this turns around twice for every once of the down deal. So you end up turning it just a little bit to turn this like a quarter turn. You'd probably have to turn that a half a turn or something. I might have that backwards. But anyways, instead of doing all that nonsense, I'm going to try to just do a visual. And I'll just turn it and see, like right here, see if we can get this. There's a lobe. And you want that lobe. This is going to be really loose. Well, that's probably why these are loose. It's going to be really loose because you want, I believe, it to be on the high spot. And I'll check that. So in other words, I'm pretty sure this lobe, and I might have this backwards, I'm going to look this up. This lobe will either supposed to be lifting this all the way up, and you set it that way, or it's supposed to be on the low spot, which the lobe is all the way pointed down, and you set it like that. I got to double check that. But using that method, and the reason why I'm kind of like, I'm not sure, is because I haven't done this in a while. Plus, they tell you to use the markings on the pulley position. And so people just follow that, and they really don't understand what's going on. It's better to understand what's going on, so you can get away with little tricks like not having to pull that timing cover off unless you have to. And so, anyhow, what you do is, once I figure it out if it's supposed to be high or low, you just look at the one you're trying to set, and you get a feeler gauge. And I'll show you. You come over your sticker, like on mine. Where's it at? My eyes aren't that good. Here it goes. It's got the valve lashing. That's what they call that. Hopefully that's focused. It's called a valve lashing. You got the intake and the exhaust. And the intake should be 0.20 millimeters, and the exhaust should be 0.25. millimeters, and it says plus or minus 0.02 millimeters. And that kind of runs into a small little problem in the American world of doing things. Let's see if I got my feeler gauge here. Yeah, here, I think I already got them out and everything. And what the problem is, let me spread these out. I like these kind with the bends because it's really hard to do these back ones if you got those straight kind. And I think I got these at Napa or something. Yeah, it says Napa on there. Anyways, what I was saying about Mercury cars like to use inches. So this is like 0.010 inches, and that really comes out to be 0.254. And the Hondas have pretty tight tolerances and stuff. And like the 0.008 inches comes out to be 0.20. So if I'm going to use these gauges, just be aware that the millimeters don't match up nicely with the inches the way they make them appear. In fact, a lot of times you look on the packaging and they won't show, they'll just call 0.010 inches 0.25 and they say, yeah, you can use it for that. But it's pretty kind of close to one side of the specs. Anyway, so just be aware of that. And my thinking is if you hear ticking, that means your lashes are loose. You can actually purposely have them loose or tight, and it'll change the performance of your car a little bit. You don't want to do that unless you know what you're doing. It's better to follow the specs on the sticker up there and just set them to that until you get advanced. And before I do that, I think I would just get a different camshaft that would give me my timing advantage, and then I know what I'm doing there. But anyways, so I'm going to pause the video here while I figure out how I'm supposed to do those lobes there. Alright, I want to show you a couple of things. Hopefully there's not too much bright light here for you. Right down right where the A is, there's a I guess it's a pink line. I just use fingernail polish, and that's kind of a fluorescent reddish, because normally the mark's red. And I don't know if it's showing up on camera, but that center mark that's red is actually in between two other marks, so it's right in the middle. And again, that's right in the center of that A. That's your timing mark. And if you look above where the A tip is, the top of the A is, you should be seeing a V there. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. There, that should be showing up good. So at the top of the A, you'll see a V cut out there. It's kind of like a gun sight. And at the base of the A in the center, you'll see the red line. And just to the right of the T, there's another line that's chipped in there. And I usually hit those with some white fingernail polish or white marker or something like that. And I don't know why I didn't do that one. But so I don't know if we can look it straight down on there, so I won't blind you here. If you're able to look down the gun sight, if I can find it, I think, yeah, starting up a radiator hose is right in the way, or not radiator, power steering hose. Anyways, we'll stick with this side here. See above the gun sight up top here, that's your timing mark. And you actually zoom back out. You look down from the top of this here to see when you set your timing. I know this is a timing tutorial, but was that it there? Yeah, I can almost see it, but I can't see it. Again, you can see it here. There's the mark there, and the that little top arrow thing. You'd look at it from the top of the engine. You'd look down here, see the little piece that sticks out, and use the gun sights in correlation with that red line to line it up. Anyways, that's for timing. And so what we want is this back notch, which is the top dead center notch. And Oh, there's his finger there. It's it's just to the right of the base of the T. So what you want to do that is put that second one at the base of the T inside the gun sights there, right where the red mark's at. What that'll do is put the #1 cylinder at top dead center. And I was thinking about this. Everybody probably knows there's four cycles to this type of motor, as opposed to a 2-stroke is a 4-stroke, which means there's a compression, intake, compression, then you fire it, then you expel the exhaust. And so when this is, the lobes push up, I don't know what the dog is barking at, when the lobes push up, or the cam pushes on the back of the lobes, it opens these valves. And so you have them open like on the exhaust. If you're trying to expel gases, you need these opened. So during your other cycles, these should be up and closed. And on your intake, you're going to have these open, of course, when you want to bring in air. So that would be down. So the intake side's open, your valves should be pressed down and allow the air to come in. And then you put it up on the exhaust, and the ways you're going to put it up would be the lobes would need to be the high side. Let's see here. Yeah, if this lobe was pushing this up, it would cause the valve to open. So you want the lobe on the low side. So you want the high part of the camshaft, I don't know if it's showing up, high part of the camshaft pointing away from the rocker arm. And when I set that to top dead center, it's going to set this one up, and I'll know for sure what that looks like, and I'll show you. But so I'm going to play around. I'm not going to make you watch me do this. Oh, I want to show you something. The reason why some people might be going, well, you could have took this tire and wheel and just turned it and got access to that with like some extensions and stuff. Some of my tools are in my buddy's garage, and kind of doing this with my cheap tools, and I don't have an extension, I just have a little 3-inch extension. So by taking this off, I can still do this job with just a dinky 3-inch extension. I like to have it way out here when I'm doing it, but this is actually kind of nice because I can see in there what's going on a little bit better. So it's not hard to take a wheel off, so it's kind of like the better way to do it. And so you can do this with just a little 3-inch extension in a socket. And I think that was a 17-inch socket down there. But so I'm just going to play around with that until I get that second mark that I was showing you, that's the base of the T, lined up with the gun sight, and that should set my cylinder to #1. Sorry about that long ramble in there. Okay, I should really have my stand for the camera here. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. Anyways, what you do is just get yourself a 10mm wrench, break that free. These are only like 17 foot-pounds or something like that. It's not very much. So you don't have to put these on very tight. And what you do is you just use a screwdriver to tighten or loosen the center screw. And usually you gotta have this on here. Can't do it with 2 hands or with 1 hand. And you hold it with the wrench, and you adjust the screw here left to right to loosen or tighten it. You just take your filler gauge, stick it in there. It's easy to remember. Exhaust is going to have a lot more heat than the intake side. You want cool, so the bigger gap's going to be on the exhaust side. And again, you just look up there on your sticker to verify your numbers. 0.2 for the intake and 0.25 for the exhaust. So you just put that on there, and then you just tighten that nut down when you've adjusted it with your screwdriver to the tension you want there. That's about all there is to it. There are certain ones that are going to be loose, while other ones are going to be tight. Like these ones right next to are tight, this one's loose, and you can double check it. Again, it's kind of, if you haven't done it before and you're not confident, it's easier to take this off, and it'll say up right here, and you just turn it a quarter turn every time you go from here to here to here to here. And I can't remember if it goes into that sequence or not. It might not. You have to check the manual. But essentially, if you pay attention to your lobes, you can kind of figure out if they're being pressed or not being pressed. And so you just want them on the loose side when you're feeling them. And when they're pushing down on the springs, you don't want to do one that is pushing the springs. So another way you can kind of tell, I just thought about this, is you might be able to look at the springs and see that they're loose as opposed to compressed. And these ones are squished down a little bit farther than the loose ones. Anyway, so you want to do your loose ones. That's what how you're setting your valve lashing. Okay, so here's how I did this. I did this one, this one, this one. Let's see. Yeah, I did this one, and then these two. And that'll actually work, but I don't recommend you do it this way, because now I'm like, I want to do a couple other, I need to rotate it around, and I'm not that good to know. If you're good enough, you can know how many times to rotate it around, and you should have to just do this in a couple of rotations, because it should unlock the other set. But, so, with this in top dead center, you definitely can do these two here. So hopefully this will just make it go a little faster, because a couple of these other ones are already done for me. So what you want to do now is, that wrench I had, it's getting dark out here, that I showed you down there. It's all the way back. Yeah, that you want to turn the bottom gear 180 degrees. So I just take that socket wrench, and right now it's pointed up, and I'll go all the way till it's pointing down, and that'll be 180 degrees, and that will put you on the number 3 cylinder. And the firing order on this is 1, 3, 4, and 2. So after I get done setting these, I'll rotate that all the way around back to the up position, or another 180 degrees, and then I can set my number 4 cylinder. And then I'll pull it back down, all the way down the bottom. That'll be another 180 degrees, and then I'll set my number 2 cylinder. So that's probably the easiest way to do that, so you don't get confused, because it is kind of tricky doing the spider setting one, because you got to really be on the ball and you'll forget where you're at. So it's easier just to do 1, 3, 4, and 2, and everything's 180 degrees. So anyway, so that's what I'm going to do there. I won't make you watch me do that. And maybe I'll show you me putting this back together, because you want to do a couple of things. You want to clean the surface, get all the oil off that, clean up that gasket, put it back in the top of the seal, and I'll show you where to put the Honda Bond. I might not show you that. You just put it in the opposite end of here. You just put it on the corners right here, and then you seat the thing back together, put your bolts back on, and you're done. It's getting kind of dark out here, so you probably don't want to see all that. Okay, so again, I used my method of you just keep rotating the bottom lever around 180 degrees. You can use that timing mark to help you on one, and I put a little mark on the pulley on the bottom, so I could see those, tell when it's 180 degrees. And again, I went 1, 3, 4, and 2. And as you do these, 2 on these side, oops, wrong line to you. It'll go these 2, and then on the other side, it'll go these 2. So it's these 2 and these 2 and these 2. And so as you're rotating around, you'll notice, just check which ones are loose, and you'll see that pattern repeat. There'll be 2 next to each other and then 2 staggered. And since you're there, you might as well do those staggered ones if you think you're there. And what that did for me is I went 1, and I kind of did some as I saw them. But when I went 1, 2, 1, 3, got to 4, when I went back to do number 2, it was already kind of done for me, so that saved a little bit of time. I was going to say, you want to make sure your gasket's nice and clean. Hopefully I don't get too much oil on mine. I try to clean it up. And you want to clean the mating surfaces where that gasket's going to go. And I'm just going to put a tiny little dab. It just takes a dab in the corners here, and the same on the other side of Honda Bond. And then I'm just going to put my valve cover on it. And it's important that you torque that down so you don't over tighten it, because if you over tighten it, you actually make that valve cover probably leak. It usually happens if you over tighten gasket seals. So look up those torques and don't over tighten it. So all I got to do now is just button it up, which is just going to be put the Honda bond on and then flip the valve cover back over and then put the bolts on it. And that's about it.